Hello and welcome, everyone. Welcome back to this session. My name is Alison. If you haven't joined one of our ESP Strand talks, I work for Trinity College London as the Head of Business Development for Language for the UK and Ireland. And it is my pleasure to be moderating this strand for the future of ELT. And I'm delighted to introduce you to Marina Yesipenko, who is going to do this session. It's entitled From Politics to Podcasts, Teaching ESP to Professionals with Public-Facing Roles. I have a particular interest in this as a member of staff at Trinity College London. Obviously, we do lots of qualifications across not just English language, but also drama, speech and communication and music as well. And so the whole idea of developing communication skills and soft skills is something very much of interest to me. So I'm looking forward to this session with you, Marina. Just to kick us off, a little bit of background about Marina. So she is currently based in the Czech Republic. So she has over 20 years of experience teaching English, Japanese, and Czech, which I found fascinating. I lived in Japan for 6 years. My Japanese is terrible, Marina, but anyway. But she is a language educator, a methodologist, and a communication coach. And she works with politicians, speakers, and educators really to develop those public communication skills in English. And she just has this really interesting background in ELT and cognitive semiotics and Gestalt therapy to design courses that support language development and confidence in public speaking. So I'm going to hand over to you, Marina, and we'll get started. If you have questions as we go along, feel free to pop them in the comment box, and I'll join Marina at the end just to kind of recap on some of the comments and questions that we've received. So over to you, Marina.
Thank you, Alison, for this wonderful introduction. Thank you, everybody. I'm really glad to welcome you all. I actually see some friends of mine on the chat. Hello, Danny. So I'm really nice, it's really nice being here with all of you. And our topic today is finally we can talk about politics. Yeah, of course, we're not going to talk about parsnips or something, but we will talk about those people who are just doing something in political field. And I will introduce the framework that I've been using with the high-profile students I'm having. Just a little bit about myself. I'm an international speaker, as you can see, that's why I'm here. And I've spoken up to now at 50 major international conferences. And I'm also one of the many co-authors of Scott Thornsby's recent book, Dogma in Practice, which just was released recently. I'm a teacher and a business person. I used to be an owner of my own language school. I'm a methodologist. I'm working with a lot of teachers at the moment. And I'm a psychologist in Gestalt, and I'm a PhD candidate. I'm researching multimodality in the cognitive semiotic framework. And by the way, today, this framework of multimodality helped me a lot when I was assigning or when I was putting this talk together. So let's get it started. Please put a plus if you can hear me well, because I can see the chat. Yes. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, so off we go. Yeah, that's. Feel free to ask your questions. I will be really happy to answer. Yeah, maybe I will not be able to answer all the questions, but somehow I'll try. Okay, so let's start from the first thing. Yeah, so the first thing is why we're all here. The first thing that we do is actually we'll try to identify linguistic and psychological needs of public-facing clients and what might be the differences and special demands of such clients. Here, I'm trying to say that I'm not only working with people with high profile or high status and so on. I'm also teaching kids. I'm also teaching different kinds of adults from all walks of life. And here, I wouldn't like to put them into some kind of special category or something like that. The only thing, of course, this target audience of ours has some interesting demands, and we can see how well we can address them or acknowledge our limitations in that. So first and foremost, linguistic and psychological needs of public-facing clients. Second thing, we will look at different lesson formats that integrate language, rhetorics, like my knowledge about rhetoric, and media. Third, like my knowledge and my background from psychology, how to create a safe space for learners to practice and gain confidence. But to be honest, not only for learners, because as teachers, we should also try to find our place in the classroom. So this goes for us as well. And finally, we are going to look at the teacher's role as language coach or mentor, or maybe like, I don't know, like what kind of roles actually we are going to combine. Okay, so that's what we are going to do, and we are going to start from like the traditional view on English for special purposes, yeah, business emails, meetings, and all other things that many years ago we used to see in the books. But maybe about 10 or 15 years ago, I've come to realize that these old frameworks do not work, because the people who are coming into my classes demand something different. For example, they want to sound persuasive. They want to show like that, or they want to acknowledge and to be aware of making good impression on other people. They want to have kind of like genuine connection, and not only connection with the people from the same country, but cross-cultural connection. And these people are not only like politicians, CEOs, influencers, bloggers. This is usually my target audience. These people are from all walks of life with different kinds of interesting backgrounds. And today we will see how we can correlate all these things together and what we have in general. So let's take a look. Let's do a quick poll. Have you ever taught public-facing clients? And what kind of clients have you worked with? Or maybe you want to work with? Please put in the chat 1 for politicians, 2 for streamers, podcasters, or 3 for CEOs. Please put in the chat. I'm waiting for your responses here. 1, 2, or 3, or maybe 1, 2. You can put several numbers if you want. Okay. All right. Yeah, a lot of CEOs here. Yeah, that's right. Okay. Wonderful teachers. Yeah, teaching politicians as well. Yeah. Okay, I can see. None. I see. Okay. Yeah. A priest. Oh wow. Okay, I should add a 4 here. Okay. Anyway, that's what we are thinking about. I think that all these people have specific demands, and we sometimes say about like these people, I think they know what they want. Yes, usually they do. Yeah, servant Christina, or civil servants sometimes, maybe. Yeah, so this is the kind of thing. And of course, we all have faced different kinds of difficulties with them. And if you just want to start working with them, you need to like see what kind of anticipated problems might come up. So let's get going, because right now I have another question to you. If you have worked with them, what kind of difficulties did you face? Could you please write 1 or 2 words? What was the problem, if any? Maybe you're a happy person who has no problems, like when working with different kinds of people and so on, like high-profile people. Oh, yeah, I see, like different kinds of things. So please mention the problems that you might have faced. Self-confidence. We will talk about it. Personal views. That's interesting, Simona, if I pronounce your name correctly. I'm sorry. Yeah, about personal views. I mean, your personal views when you're working with politicians, or their personal views. Yeah, so that's also interesting. Specifically catered lesson. Absolutely. Time constraints. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, necessary language, style, register. Exactly. Wow. Guys, why am I here? Come on, you know everything. Choice of words. Oh, that's interesting. It's like mind your words, or choice of the language to use. That's interesting. Specific terminology. Absolutely. So here we are, and we are trying to combine everything you have written and maybe a little bit beyond. Let's take a look at that. Oh, commitment, imposter syndrome. Wow. Thank you, Dylan. Yeah, that's exactly it. Pronunciation, intonation. Come on. Yay. So I see that you have been touching on different parts and puzzles of my today's presentations. So let's take a look. First of all, what we usually do when a new student is coming into our classroom. So we give the students, or we do a needs assessment. And many of us, we have different kinds of tools. Sometimes we give a questionnaire. Sometimes we have a job interview with them, an interview with them, or whatever can come in handy in this way. But what I'm thinking about is that many of the CEOs or politicians basically, Danny is right, and no time to study, apparently. Absolutely. That is the point that I want to show here. If I give them a survey or some kind of like quiz or a questionnaire to fill in between the before our next meeting, most probably this person is not going to do it. So that's why I have to be very proactive. And I usually start from interviews. In my interview, I, of course, cover their linguistic needs, wants, lacks, and affordances, and as well as their psychological things. And we're going to look at what kind of problems they think they have. Because if they think that they have some problems, sometimes it may not reflect the reality, but we will talk about it a little bit later. So, for example, performance anxiety, impression management, or confidence building. So anything could be here. Let's start from the linguistic needs analysis. It should be quite easy, so I will just teleport through the questions very, very fast. For example, what languages do you usually communicate in during your public facing, like basically when doing your, like performing your duties, we can say, yeah, or doing your job? It might be a good idea, of course, if they already are capable or they have already mastered another foreign language, because of course, if they have done it, so probably they have some transferable skills and tools that we could be using in our classes. If not, it will be another type of work. Are there any specific language difficulties you experience with the, for example, when interacting with a foreign audience? For example, you have a problem with grammar, pronunciation, and I always ask them for examples, because sometimes they say, my grammar is bad. But of course, it says nothing to me. Yeah, and I'm just like, I don't know what to do here. So that's why I want them to be specific. Do you use any technical or industry-specific terminology? In most cases, by the way, many of these people are well aware of this terminology. What they need is actually to expand it to communicate using this terminology, but in wider spheres of life. So this is from my personal experience. So to be honest, I do not have to teach so much terminology. My problem is actually, or what I'm dealing with, is actually the opposite, how to integrate it into human communication, not technical. Special needs can be added to, exactly, yeah, that's right, that's also an important thing, yeah, just like this. How confident do you feel speaking English, yeah, or the target language with the international audience? Please like highlight not confident, somewhat confident, or so on. And what language skills would you like mostly to improve on? For example, some people say, I don't want to do writing, whatever. And coming back to special educational needs, of course, this list of linguistic, like of this needs analysis that I'm showing you right now is not exhaustive. Yeah, so there are more than enough questions, but about special educational needs, that's also an important thing. The only problem is that as long as it is a very private matter, we can say some people are not willing to share, especially high-profile people are not willing to share these limitations, we can say. So please be careful, but with time, you will get to know it, if it is the case. Yeah. Let's move on. Psychological needs analysis, and it's basically related to what we have been talking about. I usually start from the question, when you are speaking in public, how do you generally feel? The answer I get is okay or not okay. And I'm like trying to find these, 50 shades of okayness. What is it? What is it going to be? Yeah, just like this. Are you calm? Are you nervous? What is okay? Are you satisfied? Not okay. Are you stressed? Are you too anxious? Are you afraid? So this is also important because we will see what kind of problems originate from psychological or for psychological reasons. Second thing, what interactions in your job make you feel uncomfortable or stressed? And if we have to incorporate like this kind of like problem solving with these difficult interactions into our course, I have to know about it. And the third thing that I find extremely important, what strategy the person is already using, how they are managing with these difficulties. Because I'm a Gestalt therapist, and I know that people who come to me, be it like anybody, basically, they had been coping with their problems somehow before me. And after they leave, they will keep coping with them. So my question is, how are they coping? And maybe my idea is not to get them to build new strategies, but just to integrate something a little bit more useful into their current strategies. So how they interact with emotions, how they're interacting with the idea that in their first language, they sound very confident. They are perceived as educated speakers of language, while when they are speaking English, they are really perceived as people who don't even have a degree, even though in the reality could be quite the contrary. So that's a very humiliating feeling for some things, and they have a lot, for some people they have a lot of shame, and we need to deal with it somehow. Yeah, so like to work with these illusions. So let's move on. And next thing that we are going to look at, when we are talking about the language, yes, when we are talking about the language, we are dealing with three basic things. The first thing, the third thing on the slide is authentic media practice. I'm not asking my students to do gap fills, or I'm not asking my students to do a lot of translation or some things that are not really relevant to what they do. I know that some of my students create podcasts. Some of them do or give streams. Some of them give interviews and take part in press conferences and speak at international forums. And even though their speeches can be learned from A to Z, anyway, I need to help them understand what they are doing and what effect it may have on their audience. So this is the kind of thing. We always start from different authentic media. We always start from different authentic tasks. If they need an interview, of course, we're practicing interviews. If they need a devil's advocate who is going to ask them creepy questions like during a press conference with like some guys, some journalists and so on, that's what I'm trying to do. Second thing, we are looking at pronunciation and intonation because, of course, people should be persuasive and they need to understand how their pronunciation impacts, like other people, how this pronunciation impacts the message and other things. Intonation, stress, space, everything. And finally, we look at the rhetorical side of it and how they frame their messages. So what they do, where they can do some or make some repetitions, where they can make pauses, which is connected with intonation also and pacing, and all these kinds of things. As you can see, it's pretty hard to talk about it all because it's all interrelated, so like it's like a huge different thing. Dylan, thank you. Pausing for effect and processing time, listeners, exactly, this is the thing. So let's look at some pronunciation features and intonation features, like prosodic features that could be necessary for our classes. Of course, it's rhythm and pausing. I'm a little bit anxious right now, and that's why I'm trying to speak faster than I usually do. But sometimes when I need to stress important information, of course, I take a break. I pause. Also, the pitch. Sometimes when we are frightened, our pitch goes up and it may sound a little bit awkward, or down, too down. Yes, when we are like too confident about different things, but in some cases, in some context, it doesn't sound well. Sentence stress. Where exactly in which words and clusters we need to basically stress it all up. Oh, wonderful, Lucy. Thank you. It can be exhausting for an English speaker to listen to someone with very flat prosody. That's true. The only thing, when we are working with politicians, it's not only about English speakers. Most of their audience are, like people who are speaking English, but it's not their native language. And my task is to meet all the conventions of this language as lingua franca, So this is quite difficult, I guess. Intonation. And my favorite part is number 5. I put it I put it here because I want to stress it a lot. Politicians are very ironic, basically, and they use a lot of irony and sarcasm in their talks, sometimes in their answers. And my task is to help them deal with this somehow so that their irony or sarcasm doesn't sound too abrupt or too straightforward or too even rude. So this is the things that I am working with. Okay, that's right. Okay, About rhetorical framing and messages, how we frame our messages is important. For example, we understand that when we are talking about something, especially something sensitive, there should be ways how to describe it without naming it like this. So when we're talking about some international conflicts, yeah, so there should be some words that like sound milder for more vulnerable or for more sensitive people. And we need to look for different means of expressions for these, like for politicians and for like bloggers, journalists, and so on, so that it sounds okay and people can bear this like stress that they have when they hear it. So this is also important, taking care of the listener. Sometimes they have to use metaphors effectively, the metaphors that people understand, or the metaphors that they create on the spot, but being creative, this metaphor will also be quite catchy, just like this. Okay, relevant examples. Also, what kind of examples will be relevant? And the politicians I'm working with, of course, take a lot of examples from history. But we know that history is a tricky thing, and different people in the world basically use history, in a very indifferent context. Yeah. And sometimes when we're looking for examples, we need to find the example that will be common or at least shared for the majority of the people who are going to listen to it. Then appeals to shared value. Yes, like ethical, moral things and so on. Yeah, how to use it so that it sounds authentic. Yes, but not like some kind of like phony thing. Repetition and strategic messaging. So we need to know the direct message of this person, and we need to use it several times throughout the speech for better effect. And finally, politicians should be aware of, in their speeches, of the in-group and out-group dynamics. We against them. Yes, so us against them. And when the person doesn't know it, the person can create a psychological barrier between themselves and their listeners. So these are some of the things. Again, this list is not exhaustive, that you might look at when you are dealing with it. So let's make a reference to our emails. Yeah, sounds a little bit different. Yeah, so this is not like how to write emails. This is not like reading about some, like, I don't know, like startups and so on. This is already something different, something deeper, how to convey the message. All right. And I've already told you that, oh yeah, by the way, wonderful comment. Richenda, oh, sorry, like if I pronounce your name not correctly, cultural awareness is vital to get the examples correct. Absolutely. It's really important. And that's why I'm here. Because I'm a person who is researching semiotics. I'm researching, like, I started from social semiotics, yes, so how different cultures interpret different symbols and signs. And now I'm going to cognitive semiotic, yes, so how we can do it, yes, to create better messages. And when we are watching some kind of like talks with politicians first before creating their own talks, we are focusing a lot on the modes, different modes of giving messages. One of them could be gestures. Yeah, like what kind of gestures the person is using. Posture, how the person is standing. Visuals and presentation. What does the presentation look like? What visuals the person is using in the presentation? Are these visuals culturally and socially appropriate here? Even looking at the colors might mean a lot, depending on who we are talking to. And outfit, what you're wearing, yes, like maybe like, and some people say, oh, come on, it might be great manipulation and so on. Yes, manipulation if you're manipulating. But second thing, we should be aware of these things. We should be aware of what kind of effect we are like making on the audience when we're speaking in public. Just like this. Just for an example, today I created a very bland presentation, like very, I could say modest, black and gray presentation, basically, because I don't want it to, like anything, to distract your attention from the message. Just like this. Yes, and especially in internet presentations. That's true. That's true. So let's look at some authentic tasks that we are doing with some of my students, and I would like you to think about the following things. And I usually start from short pitching, yes, speeches, and it's important to be able to pitch your speech, yeah, to do the pitching, and it's usually 1 or 2 minutes. And the CEOs or politicians are thinking about different kinds of things that like they would like to implement or they would like to discuss and so on. When we are creating it, of course, first of all, we watch different kinds of short speeches when somebody is pitching their product. For example, at hackathons, sometimes we even take some speeches from, I don't know, the world of technology, because they are pretty good at that. And what we are doing, we are focusing on different modes of presentation, how the meaning is made. Yes, of course, we look at the language, what kind of language they are using, some grammar, but I couldn't say that this is grammar. I would say that I'm more a proponent of the lexical approach. So I'd rather look at some phrases and functional language that people are using to like satisfy certain needs. Yeah, so this is the thing. Second thing, of course, focus on clarity, how clear the message is, how persuasive it sounds, and why. And finally, what makes it memorable. Maybe it's repeated several times, or maybe there are some interesting examples, like it's a short one and it's quite easy and difficult at the same time to integrate a memorable example that will be like remembered by the people later. So this is the kind of thing. Yes, the non-verbal communication should be integrated with the kind of messages, yes, want to transmit to the public speaking to have success in the communication. Absolutely. And not only to have success, but I think politicians should be aware. And many of them are aware of it. We call it kinesthetic intelligence, right? Like it's a part of emotional intelligence, but basically kinesthetic intelligence as well. Yeah. Okay. Next, we do speech analysis also, like I said to you, yes, and they sometimes bring in some speeches from other public speakers, not necessarily from their like from their field. Some of them bring in some short messages, even from stand-up, because it might be sometimes wonderful to be using humor. I haven't included humor in my messages, but I think being able to deal with humor in an effective way makes a great impression on the audience. So people start feeling safer, we can say, yeah, when somebody has good sense of humor. We are also looking at different kinds of like rhetorical things, how they frame the message, yes, like where they make the pauses, like what is the main idea and so on, and how it is delivered. The second thing the third thing here that I wanted to talk about is actually cross-cultural communication scenarios. We, like some of the politicians I'm working with, they sometimes have to deal with people from very different walks of life and very different parts of the world. And this is very interesting because we sometimes even compare, yes, we compare a lot of stuff, you know, like with like when they're working with some guys from Eastern world, yes, and when they're working with some guys from Western world, but not from their country. And it's also very interesting just to compare how they deal with this problem, how these guys deal with this problem. And I think my students, including me as well, I'm also a student here, get new insights into that. And storytelling, this is my favorite part. I love telling stories, but we are trying to come up with amazing like storytelling and narrative techniques for deeper emotional appeal, because we are practicing different kinds of techniques which help us connect with the audiences emotionally on a deeper level, yes, and we are creating short narratives and about values, focusing on tone, pacing, and engaging the audience. So this is the most important kind of thing. Right. And my favorite part is actually here. It's the psychological part. Some people here, thank you. Yeah, thank you for sharing with me. Yes, about imposter syndrome, about different kinds of things that are connected with self-confidence and lack of self-confidence. To be honest, as a psychologist, I do not really believe in the existence of 100% self-confidence everywhere. Yeah, but if you do something for many, many times, so and you know integrate this experience, you are becoming more and more self-confident. Yeah, but in this case, probably we are talking not about self-confidence in this sense, but about self maybe assuredness, yeah, like, and the person who wants to fake it till they make it, yeah. So it's, in some points it's overconfidence, and at some point it's big lack of confidence. Like, what we are dealing with that, of course, learning is always about vulnerability. When somebody is learning, it is pretty important to open up to the new experience. And it's one of the major difficulties dealing with politicians and CEOs. They sometimes are just don't know how to do it. And when we start thinking about like emotions that they get from learning, they either say, wow, I did it, like I made it, it's wonderful, it's good. Or it is like, oh my God, Marina, you irritate me, go away, something like this, you know? And there is nothing in between. And this is interesting. And I'm saying to this person, you see, there are so many colors and there are a lot of emotions, but you are choosing black or white, nothing else. Why aren't you choosing other colors? So it's pretty important to help them open up a little bit in the safe environment and learn the things. Otherwise, learning will never happen. That's why these types of learners are so difficult. And if they don't open up, also to have respect to this, because, yeah, they somehow lived without us and they will keep living without us as well. Scaffolding practice. Yeah, we start if the tasks are too difficult for them, like somebody told about, somebody mentioned here, like some very blunt intonation, yeah, like flat intonation, we can call it. Yeah, exactly the same thing. I have a student who has this kind of, not problem, but this kind of like specific feature. Yeah, and no matter what he does, it doesn't work. So he has a lot of resistance, and if it works in class, when he starts speaking, his flat intonation comes back. And we decided, okay, let it be as it is. I'm great in this kind of case. Yeah, like I will be, it will be always like this. And when he said so, I saw that his intonation started moving a little bit, like up, down, up, down. And I'm like, are you noticing this? The intonation gets flat again. So I realized that, yes, small changes are happening, but his flat intonation is some kind of defense for him. Let it be. So as a public speaker, he is the speaker with a flat intonation. Let it be like this. And of course, a lot of reflection. As you can see, I ask, yeah, my students, do you notice this? How do you feel about this? Yeah, and I'm always starting from not self-assessment. This is not the right word that I would use here, because self-assessment is better for testing. And testing is a very narcissistic world. They have a lot of, I think, too much narcissism there. What I usually ask them how they feel about the experience. And sometimes they don't understand what kind of feelings they get. I sometimes use cards or pictures, or ask them even to draw how they feel. Use colors, choose the color that you like, which is associated with something like that. So I'm trying to use the elements of art therapy, don't tell our politicians, just to help them understand that something is moving, not only with I ticked the box, I'm good, just like this. Just a moment, I'm looking at your amazing comments. Mistakes, yeah, wonderful points about mistakes. Can you give real life examples of teaching ESP to public facing roles based on your own experience? Well, I'm giving real life examples. Unfortunately, as you can understand, when you are dealing with high profile clients, there is some streak of confidentiality, yeah, that unfortunately I cannot disclose. Yeah, so like no names and so on. But yes, this is the downside of our profession, because it's really hard to write about it in social media sometimes. Okay, what extra actions or different tasks do you recommend for learners who suffer from ADHD? Thank you. Oh, yes. When we are talking about ADHD is actually not the point that I am talking about. I can say that I'm working with trauma a lot as a Gestalt psychologist, and many people who used to have a pretty harsh background, they have ADHD, like many of them. And I think this should be done in conjunction not only with the teacher, but also with the psychologist. But if I were to work with a person who has ADHD, first of all, I would make our classes shorter, our tasks shorter. I would introduce more different kinds of, like, maybe not more, but I would introduce colors where I wanted them to look more intensely, but not too many, because it can distract them. And probably I would ask them to move from time to time. So this is just all these specifics that we can deal with. Analyzing mistakes, the English teacher can tailor a new action plan for learning. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, always focusing. I don't call them mistakes, What I call them is like basically learning on my past experience. And I'm not saying, like, by the way, in the narcissistic world of politicians, when they hear the word mistakes, they just shut down, like completely. And I'm not using mistake. I'm saying past experiences. So you had this experience. How can we change this experience? What can be done? What can you learn from this experience? So experiences as they are. Okay, so a simple lesson. By the way, not even the whole lesson, but a micro lesson. Of course, warm up depending on the needs, yeah, or your kind of like routines. It's very important for politicians to have routines as well. And by the way, often they do not notice that they disrespect your boundaries. For example, they can connect from the, I don't know, car, and they can just forget to notify you. And I always talk about it with them. And it's getting better. And if it doesn't get better, I stop the classes. So this is the kind of thing. I think it's really important to be well aware of your own boundaries and limitations in this case. So we do a micro task. I give the feedback. We do reflection, starting from self-reflection. So what we actually do with them, we are looking at different kinds of speech recording analysis, and politicians usually have a lot of speeches they have delivered already, and they can analyze their own speeches, and they make them more and more effective. And we create certain digital portfolios, and sometimes it's quite funny to see the reaction of the student who looks at his first video and his last video, and who is like very pleased to have seen or have noticed some interesting like kind of changes. Yeah, so this is the kind of thing. Yeah, learner-centered teaching, exactly. This is what we are trying to do. So I'm kind of a moderator in all these things. So I provide something, but mostly my students give me a lot, and they are the main actors in this. But of course, yeah, like I know where to help them out, yes, where to support them, where to scaffold, and so on. But learner-centered, it's really good. Routines are very good for learners of all ages. Lucy, I do agree with you, even for teachers. All right, so a little bit of reflection for you. Sorry for this mess of words, yeah, because I know that I've been a little bit fast. Could you please write down, yeah, so which points sound most noteworthy to you? So which points would you like to take into consideration? And which points would you like to try out immediately after this workshop? Please put it down in the chat. By the way, the useful points may not necessarily come from my slides, but by the way, a lot of wonderful colleagues have shared their amazing insights. Comments about setting boundaries as a teacher. Yes, thank you, Alison. Absolutely. Yeah. So this like setting boundaries, like for teachers, is paramount. Indeed, setting boundaries and respect. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Storytelling narratives. Yeah. First interview. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, minding linguistic and psychological needs as well. Speech analysis sims. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing this. Pre-course interviews. Yeah, absolutely. Mind the boundaries. Yeah, not to be friends. They are not your friends, of course. Just like this. Reflection, mini presentation tailored to their needs. Wonderful, Isabella. Thank you. Safe spaces and confidence. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you very much, everybody. I'm here to basically answer your questions. And I think that is it.
Amazing, Marina. I loved that. I really found that really, really enjoyable. And I think there were so many positive comments as you were speaking, and people, just a lot of food for thought there. You answered some of the questions going through, so thank you for that. And I think it was nice for the audience to kind of feel a bit, involved as they went along. So thank you for doing that. I mean, one thing that I wrote down, I was going to put in the comments was, when you were talking about these kind of illusions of shame, and I was thinking about my own experiences, speaking different languages. And I guess my question to you is, do you think you're training people to develop a certain persona that they associate with speaking a foreign language, or are you trying to get them to be authentic in who they are as they're using English? Does that question make sense, or comment make sense to you?
Thank you, Alison. It's a very deep question. My personal contention, I'm totally against developing a persona. However, I understand that certain personalities will definitely develop a persona. But if we can like somehow be supported by our authentic self, I think it might be a good idea to go through this shame of being not enough in the foreign language and build up on this later on, while your language is growing, while your confidence is growing. Sorry, and all these kinds of things. I have this experience from the Czech Republic, and I'm really happy that I was surrounded by supportive people. And when I got into the environment that was not supportive and that was critical of my Czech language, I immediately remembered that first experience of support, and it changed the situation.
Yeah, very good, very good. There's a couple of more comments coming through. So Richenda says, fascinated to hear more about semiotics and its applications to working with politicians, CEOs, etc. What have you discovered about semiotics and culture? Big question there, but I don't know if you have any response to Richenda.
Yeah, by the way, thank you for this wonderful question. Yeah, I started from social semiotics, like I said, yeah, but now I'm in cognitive semiotics. So in cognitive semiotics, I'm trying to create a framework. Like semiotics is actually creating the framework of everything, yeah. And in terms of what I have discovered about social semiotics, I need to research the culture, and some of you have mentioned it here. If you are dealing with a certain audience, always research the culture. Try to get at least 1 or 2 tips about every culture and have respect to that. It's paramount, I think.
That's great. I did just want to make a comment, because as you were presenting, and as I said at the beginning, Trinity, we do cross-subject, qualifications, much of which is all about developing these sort of human skills, right? So, and I did want to just say to the audience, if looking at a qualification for how we assess these sorts of skills, and we have the communication skills qualification that is very much about looking at confidence, looking at how we address different audiences, visuals, how we use different cues when we present. So if that is of interest, I would definitely say go and have a look at Trinity's communication skills qualification. So yes, I did want to just point people to that. All right. I think, again, Marina, thank you for an engaging, interesting session today. I think everybody, you can see from the comments, lots of people interested in what you're saying. And I think people really enjoyed this session. So thanks very much. And you will, of course, be able to watch the recording. I think you'll be able to watch it straight after. If you go to the program, it will just load, which is good. I think also the plan is to, where we can, get copies of people's slides, and we'll put the slides up alongside the recording. So do keep checking back. Okay, we're going to pause there. Again, thank you, Marina, for a brilliant session. I just want to say we've got a little bit of a break in the program right now. So I know it, depending on where you are in the world, whether it's lunchtime or dinner time, I don't know, but we've got a 45-minute break. And then after that, we have our first plenary with Masatoshi Sato. So please join us after you've had a little rest. Okay, thanks again. And see you at the next session, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.